Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, we have sound. I need people to confirm in the comments that we have sound, because yesterday StreamYard was out in the yard playing. We didn't have good audio. So thank all of you that text me, inbox me, and was like, there's no sound, we can't hear you. And thank all of you that came back in for just a second yesterday when we caught up. Listen, as you see, we have the Waterfront Wednesday Blue. Today is Waterfront Wednesday. As we've done for the past couple of years, we have talked with the folks from the Coalition for Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. And so they're back today for their last episode for 2024. We have been with them for the last few years, talking about the great work they're doing around resilience and diversity, equity, and inclusion on Boston's waterfront, from the benefits to our health, to, being part of the process with the reshaping of the waterfront with climate change and justice in the lens of the work that they're doing. And so I'm excited today to bring a couple of folks in the room. I'm excited to bring Saloni in. She is part of the CRIW. That's the acronym for the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. And he's been on before, but he's usually in the background. And so today we get to bring the good, I was going to say Dr. Karby, and I don't know where he's headed, but just out of what you do, I just found myself saying Dr. Karby, but Ian Karby as well is with us today. And we're going to talk about the great work. We've had a lot of guests from the Waterfront Coalition this year, but we're ending out the year with talking about what they're doing as a whole coalition. And so, Saloni, I want to give it to you first and greet the folks. And I would ask you to end your greeting with describing the work of the waterfront in one word. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. And I work as a health and wellness associate for the Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront Coalition. And I am, by background, I'm a physical therapist. I have around 20 years of physical therapy experience. I'm a certified health coach. I'm also adjunct faculty and do some teaching and research. And I'm really happy to have this opportunity to be here today. And to end it with one word, I want to call it wellness for the communities. So I'm going to call this wellness as my scribe for today.
Now, a couple of things there. First of all, 20 years working anywhere in a business for 20 years, because we just don't give that vibe. And two, you can't cheat with saying wellness. Because you can, it's your word, but I'm like, that's a part of it, but we'll come back. But thank you for all that you do in community and being with us today. And Ian, what's up, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And so Ian, reintroduce yourself and give us one word to describe the work that's going on with CRIW.
So my name's Ian Karby. I'm a senior advisor for the Coalition for Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. My background is also in physical therapy and healthcare. For CRIW, let's see, one word. It's always tough. And Saloni took a great word that we've really used a lot the last few years. I think education is something that's been really important this year for us. So I think, and we both teach as well. And I love education. I love helping teach people and learning as well. So I think I'm going to go with education, even though that was like 70 words in describing why I think that.
Well, you gave the context. And so I'll continue with here with you, Ian. And, we've talked about this before. Education is important. And that's one of the reasons we have this partnership to educate the community about the benefits, about the work, and about just the importance of being intentional around inclusion on the waterfront. But there are different perspectives. There's the public health perspective. there is the climate change perspective, there is the environmental justice perspective. And so for Ian, or for you rather, if I could ask, how do they all come together in this work that you've been doing the past few years? How have you seen it come together? And if you would like to end with, what have you seen the benefits? I know you and Saloni and others are working on a lot there at the CRIW, not just events. We're thankful for the events, you know, the signature Java with Jimmy on Waterfront, yes. But what that goes behind this around public health, around climate change. And we're going to talk about climate change and winter wellness as well. And feel free to tie that in as well. And then Saloni, we're going to come back to you.
Yeah, I think it's something that as I was starting this work, I don't think I fully understood how much everything was interconnected. Learning about environmental justice and climate resilience and inclusivity and healthcare and public health, I knew that they were all important things that I cared about, but I didn't recognize just how interwoven they are. So I think, for example, thinking about something like areas of the city that potentially don't have a lot of green space or a lot of blue space typically are way more susceptible to extreme heat in the summer. So, and we know that in a lot of times those areas are not, some of the areas that have more of the blue and green spaces are not as inclusive, or historically have not been as inclusive. So just in that example there with the extreme heat, we've got climate change, we've got climate resilience, environmental justice playing a role here, and the extreme heat, and it's affecting people's public health. Extreme heat, we know, can lead to issues in people's health and wellness. And then we know that the areas where some of those green and blue spaces that can help provide cooling effects sometimes are less inclusive. So the inclusivity is also playing a role there. So what we've been focusing on is trying to connect the dots here. A lot of this year in particular has been trying to educate the public around the importance of some of the blue spaces and why they're so important, and how to make them more accessible, that we can talk about more as we go into this. But those are some of the things that I think just kind of weave all this together. That's one example, but there's so many. It's amazing how it's all interconnected.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I had the mic on mute. Saloni, I want to ask your perspective as well. Both of you move in the space of physical therapy. And so there is that public health perspective. We've often talked about walking around the water. You know, this time of year, you know, I don't know. And we've joked, I think, with Boston Harbor now. And what is it, Ian Pierce Park, about getting me out on the water? I think it was last year, getting me out on the water in the winter. But, you know, from your perspective, can you tie the work of the waterfront, climate change, and public health? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so definitely, as you said, you know, coming from a perspective where I see individual or clients, when I started working in this space of, you know, community, and it all comes down to kind of what's happening at the level of like a larger community. So in terms of, we were trying to kind of see the health of individuals and what affects that. And the health of individual, and that's how it's all connected. So when we talk about health, we're thinking about like the physical health, the mental health, the emotional health, the social health, the cultural health. So all of that together is what we try to tie it in terms of how all of that, in order to have all of that, it's really important to have this combination of really good, you know, effects of the climate change, effects of having the green and blue spaces, and then the overall wellness. So that's how we try to connect, or when I came on board, that's what I was thinking more about, the overall health of the community and how we can improve that by addressing all these different aspects.
Definitely agreed. I'm just going to put up on screen for a minute, just a little bit of some of the work and perspectives. And Ian, you can speak to this a little bit. Hold on here, because I think I got it. Ian knows that, you know, sometimes the screen doesn't do what I want it to do, but I think I got it. Hold on.
Look at that.
And so let me go in before they start getting on me and say, James, we can't see it. All right. Let me zoom in. Well, Ian, go ahead and tell us just a little bit here, because the correlation of what we just talked about is, you know, presented in some of the work that you're doing. So I'll just scroll through. There's mental illness. There's the physical wellness. Both of you, please feel free to chime in for a couple of seconds here.
Yeah, and this is, so Saloni was just talking about the different aspects of wellness that we wanted to highlight, and that's what this document is. I dropped the link. I believe it's just on StreamYard though. So that, yeah, because this document's actually on our website. So we really wanted to outline what wellness means, and then outline a lot of different types of wellness, because a lot of people typically think when they hear wellness, they think of the one we're looking at here, physical wellness, which is great. And physical wellness, undoubtedly important. But there's all these other things, sleep, I think mental health and wellness, I think cultural, community wellness, those things all can be connected to public spaces. In this document in particular, we highlight what a green space is and what a blue space is. So a green space being your parks, areas with lots of trees or grass. Those areas can be particularly helpful for all of these areas of wellness. But the ones that are close to our heart, especially, are the blue spaces, which are more of the waterfront areas. And believe it or not, this could include anything from the Boston Harbor, the rivers, the Charles River, the Neponset River, the Mystic River. It could also be something even as simple as a fountain. So if you're ever in a pinch and you're like, I need to go just get a little fresh brain space to be around some water, you go hang out at a fountain. And I see a question coming on.
No. Water's water. So, Saloni, I told you before we started that, I respond to the questions or to the answers rather. And Ian, I'm sitting here on one hand, I'm like, wow, a fountain. But then I remember being across the country and walking up on spaces where they have, the constructed waterfalls that are a part of the facade of the front of a big building, hearing just, the water. And so it on one hand, I'm like, wow, a fountain, it's not the same as the waves on a beach. But then I'm like, I remember like purposely getting footage of that waterfall so I can go home and put it on the loop. So thank you for the reminder. Saloni, go ahead. I see you.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I wanted to provide you the science behind that. And
please, yes.
So one other thing that we came up with when we were doing this research was kind of blue space and blue minds. So like what it does to the effect different kinds of water or waterfronts can have on your mind. And that was the science of making you the blue mind, which is kind of the mind that you get when you're around water bodies. And that is found to be making folks happier, healthier, and feeling more grounded. And definitely, I think that's the effect maybe that you felt. So I just wanted to kind of add that in, that along with the blue and green spaces, we realized that some of these wellness benefits were secondary to the blue mind or the science of what those spaces do to our brains and minds so we called it a green mind and a blue mind. And we said the combination of those, which our city can provide, a combination of the blue and green spaces, can really bring about wellness in our communities. And we just have to explore that more and like encourage folks to kind of think of it like as a circle of wellness for that.
One of the things that I mentioned earlier was, this intentionality that the coalition is doing. And so thank you for the science behind that, because, a lot of times in these spaces, some people, it sounds well or whatever, but there is, and I've had, Ian, I've had psychiatrists and doctors on that talk about the benefits of being near the water and in nature. So both green and blue spaces. Absolutely. And so what are some of you mentioned the Blue Mind document. I think I remember seeing a graphic or something that looked like a mind. So I'm gonna bring that up, but that and others, what are some of the resources, Saloni, that you worked with Ian on and others this year with CRIW?
In addition to the blue and green spaces?
Yes. Or yes. Just the blue and green spaces, because that's a lot of work right there.
Yeah, well, we actually, again, like Ian said, we started off with an idea and we just realized all this interconnection and how much we could do, in this space. So we started off with the green and blue spaces around the city, and then we tried to come up with the scientific benefits of what all of that does with the wellness. Then we moved on and tried to think about some of the challenges like the heat wave. And we said, when the temperatures in summer go up, kind of educating folks on what that does to our body, and then what can we do to kind of stay healthy even in that environment. And that kind of brought us to the climate change and how the heat waves are happening secondary to all the climate change that's occurring. So we try to kind of work a little bit on what the climate change was, kind of how it impacts us, and what we can do for that. And then we finally moved into how climate change also affects, is affected by extreme cold temperatures. And we started working on a winter wellness document. So it really kind of has beautifully kind of evolved very kind of scientifically to kind of put all of this together for the communities. And hopefully we can do more work and have it on our website and have more resources for everyone.
Absolutely. And Ian, let me know if this one is on the website. And if you have the link, let me know. But I this one is easy to post. And so I can post it as well. But Saloni mentioned the extreme heat. And while it's a subject, now I'm going to be honest, the reason as to why I don't like, but if it was hot right now, I would not be mad at all. But I think it's perfectly clear that I'm not a winter guy. Outside of Thanksgiving when it snows, Christmas when it snows, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day for about an hour, and then I need it to be 50 and disappear. We've talked about things like seasonal effectiveness disorder and whatnot. How, Ian, do we be well in the winter and take advantage of some of the resources you all have that point to some of the spaces where we can go, even though in the winter, waterfront and waterfront related, maybe if they have, heaters outside. I'm messing. I'm just being very petty. But Ian, let's seriously talk about being well in the winter.
Yeah, and I will say you are not alone. I think Saloni and I are definitely also probably more summer people, and not the biggest fan of when the temperatures go down. But I will say, as I've become more educated, I have learned to appreciate some of these days. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, but it felt like forever where we were in that drought.
Yes.
And I wasn't complaining that I had. I like to go play tennis, and I wasn't complaining that it was nice enough to go play tennis in November and that it wasn't raining out. But then, of course, when it rained, instead of approaching that as like, oh, it's raining, this is so annoying, I think I was able to take a minute to just appreciate this is really important. And we're not having to deal with some of the smog that was happening from the wildfires. Hopefully the wildfires were dying down. There's so many other things that were playing a role that were much bigger than me individually in my individual moment of happiness to play tennis. So I think that was really helpful for me personally, just to give an idea of how I've reconciled with my own dislike of the cold weather. Going back to your specific question though. So a couple of different ways, a lot of ways to enjoy the get out and still stay active and well in this in the colder weather. You can utilize a lot of our partners. So we partner with a fair amount of cultural institutions, Museum of Science, Institute of Contemporary Art, the New England Aquarium, many others. One area in particular I wanted to highlight is just Mayor Wu's new, I want to make sure I say it correctly, the Boston Family Days. Yeah. And so I think, so those are free and accessible ways to get inside. So it is inside, but you're still gonna be able to walk around. You're going to be able to learn. You're going to be able to connect. And we know social wellness is an important thing, especially in the winter when you can feel isolated. Get out, be around people, bring your family to a spot and learn more. And one other thing that comes to mind, more specifically on waterfront side of things, thinking about what I mentioned before, water fountains, things like that. So even if you're only outside for a little bit, you can still get around a blue space. The simple act of watching water move can help with mindfulness, and it can help break up some of the constant back and forth in your mind of whatever you might be ruminating about in your brain. So just going and watching a tide moving back and forth, even as you're thinking about that stuff, can help break it up a little bit. So if you're able to throw on some layers, get outside, maybe go for a walk, warm up a bit first, and then you can take a seat and just watch the water. That's still great. Understandable if it's only 5 or 10 minutes though, that's okay too. And then you can hop back inside and be warm again. Long answer, but
Ian, a couple of things there. The fountains don't work. So winter is, I just had to. I'm messing.
No, that's a good point.
That was an earlier point, but to another earlier point, I'm coming back to this thing of intentionality. Saloni, if you could talk about the science again to what Ian said. Yes. Instead of, it's raining, we're appreciative of the fact that we need rain. There are other parts of the country and the world that are dealing with drought. The wildfires. We have our own, winters can tend to be interesting here. We have very cold, extreme winters sometimes, which is caused by climate change. But, we'll get into that. But can you talk to a little bit of the science of what Ian said around the green and blue spaces, the blue mind, the green mind, and intentionality, because he made a conscious decision to shift his thinking. And Ian, we didn't. Now, for some people, and I'm just thinking about this, I will say, as much as I don't like being out in the rain, if I'm in it and I can stand on the porch and watch it and just listen, not just the fountains, but the rain as well. Saloni, what's the science behind the intentionality of appreciating green and blue spaces?
Yes, this is a great question. And
I tried. No, sorry.
And being, I'm also a certified health coach. And what Ian just mentioned was a lot of kind of what our brains are thinking. So couple things. So first thing is we all need to, that's what we're trying to do, create education. I think when we educate ourselves about why do I need to get up and move in winter, because it's going to help my wellness. It's not only going to help my physical wellness, it's going to help my emotional wellness, my overall wellness, my cultural wellness, my occupational wellness, my inspirational wellness. So first part is being educated of the why. Why do I need to do this? Why do I need to go out? Ian probably subconsciously knew that this is important for me. This helps my health. This helps my wellness. So first thing was the intrinsic motivation that came in because he was educated. And hopefully our documents provide that education to the folks so they can develop that intrinsic autonomous motivation.
Hold on. What was the word that you said before? Listen.
Intrinsic.
Yep. Go ahead. Say it again and spell it.
Spell it. Okay. Intrinsic is so intrinsic, like INTRINSIC. The spelling, I was not prepared for spelling, but okay. So anyways, the intrinsic is something that comes from within. It's not someone telling you to do something. Like, for example, like you rightly said, if you tell me to go on the waterfront, I'm not doing that. That's not something I want to do, because that's not something that is something that, is coming from within, versus you say, you know what, it's so important for my mental health to just go out in the water, even if it's for 20 minutes, because it really helps me stay motivated. I stay focused. So I would say that's the first step that folks need to get in to be able to step out in the cold weather. That's the first thing. So the science is understanding and being able to apply the why it is good for me. And then the next step is knowing the right resources, and which is what we are trying to do. So if someone is motivated and wants to do something, we want to be able to kind of tie this information for them so it's easy, and also access, right? If you have something that's easily available, it's so much easier to do it versus figuring out how to do it. So I feel like that's another part that we are trying to do, provide the resources to the communities. So it's one less step for them to do. So that's the first part of the science. And the second part of the science is that we know that just because we have 6 months of winter or 4 months of winter does not mean that we don't need to stay well. We know that there's actually more reason for us to stay well, because in winter, the immune systems can go off. It's also the time when we need a boost to our immunity. We all know that the seasonal affect disorders can lead to depression, can lead to folks having sleep problems. And we all know that green and blue spaces, they are, because of the way the effect it has on our brains by the release of the cortisol, by helping the cortisol and helping the rest and digest mode get stimulated. I think all of that ties into that. So there is a lot of evidence of why we need to do these things. And I think our documents really provide the details of why. So we have the detailed document that, we try to highlight in simple language what it does for our bodies and for our minds.
I just want to remind folks and highlight that there is a hyperlink in the comments where you can go and get access to the document that Saloni is referring to, and Ian as well. There's a question. We typically, don't take questions or don't get a lot of questions on Waterfront Wednesdays, but I think this is a good transition we talk about access, and we talk about, taking advantage of inclusion and everything on the waterfront. If everything was perfect with that, with access and welcoming and a straight bus line, we know that some years from now, if we don't mend our ways as a society and people, this question here that Newt asked, and it's a good transition, Ian, to talk about, we hear this thing of participatory budgeting and participatory this. Well, we need to participatory the waterfront. And so to Newt's question, Ian can't answer that per se, but maybe he can just talk about some things that he's heard. But one of the main things he can speak to about why this question is important and why we need to pay attention to plans and public meetings. And his question, let me get to it. Is there a plan for the rising sea levels at the waterfront and by the aquarium, one of our partners? I have friends who live there and have businesses there. Concerns are elevating.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And like you said, James, the coalition itself isn't necessarily connected directly to any of those plans, but we are aware of plans that are definitely coming together, whether it's through the city that's planning for climate resilience, or some of those businesses in that area absolutely are starting to they have been starting for the past few years to figure out how are we going to combat this, adjust based on it. And so I won't delve into that because it's not an area that I'm an expert in, candidly, but there are definitely plans that are going into that. And I am hopeful and excited to see what comes of those plans.
Absolutely. One of the things that, I think you would agree with, that one of the principles of the coalition is staying educated and, excuse the typo there, educated and informed around public meetings and there's also an emphasis, Saloni, on women and girls being a part of this intentionality around the participation. So I know you can't speak to, the exact plans, but in the realm or in the lens of planning, one of the things the coalition does support is participatory water. When these plans are happening, and not just around, what we here in Boston call the seaport. Ian, did we ever finally settle on a number? I fluctuate. There's what, 71, 74. What is the final number for the miles of waterfront in this area?
In particular, I think what we talked about was the Harbor Walk, right? And I believe the Harbor Walk is 42 miles of waterfront.
The Harbor Walk may be 42, but I know Anthony and I have often discussed the actual mileage. I know it's in the 70s somewhere, and it depends on what you count, who you're counting, but that is important. And so anywhere along that line of those miles, if you hear about a meeting, go out and participate in it. Saloni, any thoughts there around, the importance of participating? We also know you're our waterfront resident wellness scientist today, along with Ian. There is some value to feeling included and participating in something that is going to help you, your neighbors, and your, children and family and loved ones, not just for now, but maybe times to come. What's the science behind participatory water? That's the question.
Well, I just want to take a step back and, to the initial question that we were trying to answer about the sea levels and, what we can do. And, a lot of our global challenges that we face, when I say global, because it's all over the world, I do think that it's not a single person effort. It is not a single agency effort. Ian and I have talked about simple things that we can do. We as individual contributors can do without kind of waiting and seeing, oh, this is going to happen. What is someone else going to do? And so we, in our handout, also try to talk about simple things on a daily basis that we could do, like, to reduce. Again, we cannot stop the climate change, but can we reduce it? Can we delay a little bit of this? And I think if the populations are educated about little things that they can do throughout the day. For example, as I did all this research, I was on it with my kids about not leaving the lights turned on, really making sure that you're saving energy, trying to find more energy efficient devices. And again, starting really small, trying to recycle more, again, and then, like you said, understanding it, try to respond as much as we can from our individual contribution side, and then supporting the agencies that are trying to do it at a larger size. That's kind of how I think about it, because I definitely think it's a group effort. And if everyone is aware or tries to be aware in small actions, I think the individuality will help us as a bigger community. And I think a lot of the work we do, if we all become individual contributors, it eventually leads to public welfare and wellness. So I guess that's how I've started my work, from being an individual contributor to my clients or my patients, and then trying to reach out as much as I can out to communities and generalized health. So I kind of think of it from that lens.
It's a lens that, the coalition functions in, not so much as in, and I want to highlight your point. I had, Ian, was it with you that you had the young woman on that did a lot of advocacy with her children and her daughter, and she were part of the plastic bag? I think this was a few months back. And we talked about recycling and environmental justice. And that's where, we really spent a few minutes talking about individual contributors to this, good and bad. The ideal is to be good. Keep the lights off. Don't litter. Be intentional about recycling. Though we focus on the waterfront, all of this plays a big role. But to my point of what Saloni was saying, there's the individual of us as individuals. But Ian, the coalition takes the individual or helps facilitate and garner the synergistic energy of the individual entities and organizations that are a part of this coalition that address this. And so I just, Saloni, thank you for going a little bit deeper to Newt's question, that though Ian and the coalition aren't directly involved, we have an ability to be directly involved through our individual, actions and behaviors. And again, so not to get on a soapbox, but that what you said there is hugely important, because even, let's keep it real, sometimes there's limited access and awareness of these meetings and whatnot. As where the coalition is looking to address that and work on inclusiveness at home, you can do a waterfront coalition action by recycling. Yeah. And then maybe, also going out in the winter and taking a walk. Ian, go ahead. You look like you want to say something.
I'm thinking, another thing that you made me think of in terms of individual action, Saloni, and James talking about recycling too. I'm already hearing some of the thoughts of what people might be feeling around recycling, because I've heard this the last few years of most of it gets thrown in the trash anyway. And just wanted to put a plug in that even if let's say 50% of the recycling that we do gets thrown into the trash, that's still, the other 50% is still being recycled. So it's still worth doing it. Just wanted to put a plug in for that. That was where my brain was going.
Absolutely. It's that, it's not far-fetched when I said that, you recycling at home contributes to the waterfront, because, we've seen, unfortunately, some stories in other places and spaces where some of the recycle has landed in different parts of the world in water. They're all connected. Yeah. And we're all connected. So again, I don't know, y'all got me in a very interesting, fluid, participatory, watery space. And so Ian and Saloni, as we get ready to wrap up, what is it that we can look for next year coming from the coalition, continued work? This is 24, started in 20 with the survey. 21 yeah. With the survey. The mayor came out and supported others. We've had a lot of events and initiatives, and just the coalition is growing. Where are we going next? What wave are we going to ride in 25 with the coalition?
Well, yeah, hopefully continuing to convene and connect the partner organizations that you're mentioning, James. That's so important for keeping everyone connected to, whether it's the public and the partners to each other, the public to the partners, to understand what these institutions are doing, and continue to educate surrounding, especially, Saloni and I both feel very passionately about public health, climate change, resilience. So yeah, just continuing to uplift those is our goal. And I'm keeping it general at the moment, but in the future, I'll be able to go in more depth, hopefully. But yeah, that's what we're thinking right now, for sure.
Saloni, I'm going to ask you to close out with this. And Ian knows me. How important in the very near future is it that we as individuals pay attention to all things environment, all things environmental justice, all things equity, inclusion, and diversity on the waterfront? How important and what's the science behind being intentional and staying educated and informed as we go into next year, anticipating hearing more updates from Ian in the very near future? How important is it?
Yeah, I think we talked, one of our captions was every action matters. And every action matters in the efforts we are taking for climate change or for wellness. And I really think that I don't think there's a timeline. I think it should be as soon as you can, because when you, again, thinking both at an individual level and one way to be intentional, as I said earlier, is to really understand the impacts it has on you, on your neighbors, and on your community. And I feel that sometimes we are inspired more when we think we are doing this for someone. Sometimes we may not be as intentional for ourselves, but we feel very, I definitely think I put in a lot more effort if I have to do something for Ian or for my children or like for my neighbors. And I feel sometimes for me, I'm like, it's okay. But I think we should do both, kind of be inspired to do for the community and also kind of for yourself. And I do believe that if folks put in this energy of giving and doing at a small level, I do think it can have an impact at a much larger level. Because, I mean, history has shown that everybody contributing individually, I think, leads to larger outcomes. And so I think changing mindsets or creating those, I would say, resilient mindsets where instead of saying, nothing's going to happen, I can't change anything, I can't do anything, creating that mindset, you know what, every little bit I try counts. So I would say that's something I would encourage communities to think about it. Again, being a health coach, I will not tell you to do it. I just want you to think about it and think if that resonates with what we are trying to do, and if you would imbibe that or embrace that. And I think every little matters.
We're going to close out because, again, Ian knows me and he knows the foundation in which I asked that last question. I will say this. I thought about something you said, Saloni, and something I was taught, I think, in elementary school. Little by, big things get done. Little by, battles are won. Not the war. Like what you said about the timeline. Start now. And so I will just end with this. And I usually stay on screen after I have guests, but in order to not get in trouble, I will just say this and we will end the episode. Saloni and Ian, thank you both for being here. It is imperative that we pay attention to the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only when it comes to individuals, but certainly spaces and places like waterfronts, green and blue spaces as well. And so thank you both for being here today. And Ian, we'll give folks an update. This is a reason for me to lock you into coming back next year. You got to come back and give updates for the coalition. And Saloni, you got some energy here that just really, keep riding the wave and making waves and both of y'all. I appreciate both of you. I am going to stay on for a couple of seconds, but I just gave that little commentary and I think I did well. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And your eyebrows went up, and I know you. When them eyebrows go up, it's serious. Thank you, brother. And tell Tracy and Anthony and everybody at the coalition and others, hello and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Listen, folks, I did well. And if you know me, you know some intentionality about asking about the importance of the near future in participatory water in the waterfront, locally, federal, state, federal. Yeah. All right. With that being said, we're going to get ready to wrap up. Vaughn, good to see you in the room, brother. Mama Java Tay, good to see you in the room. Pastor Marion, good morning to you. Miss Teresa, good morning. Newt, thank you for your question. Michelle D. Smith, good morning to you. I wanted to also congratulate and say to Donna Williams Bowen, my janky sister friend, and acknowledge her daughter who was nominated for one of the Boston Music Awards for poetry. We did not know. And somebody tag her and let her know that had we known, we would have rallied. You know, I don't know who else was in, but Donna's part of the Java family. And so we would have got behind her daughter and voted. But congratulations to her. Nisi, good to see you in the room. Thank you all for thanking our guests. Naraki, good morning, beautiful. Good to see you in the room. I think I spoke to everyone. Sister Debbie, good morning. Aaron, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Nicole, good morning. Good to see you in the room. That is it, everyone. I appreciate all of you for being here today. I am going to come on tomorrow because I need to share a couple of things in reference to violence, and also just I may have an update, but I will say that our counselor Fernandez Anderson is doing well. Came out working and staying focused on the work. So we'll right now we're scheduled to come tomorrow. I might take a day off. Y'all should see my place. As you see, as you see in the background here, I'm starting to put decorations up. And then that turned into a project because got the tree and stuff out. And then where was it going? In what corner? So that ended up in me changing around my bedroom, rearranging my closet, decluttering. So I might take tomorrow off. I'll let you guys know. Next week, we have quite a few guests lined up coming. We have a Java After Dark with ABCD next week for cuffing season. But also, before we get to that, we want to remind you and let you know that don't forget the holiday feast is taking place this weekend, starting tomorrow through Sunday at the Central Square Theater. This is a play that is being put together by the Front Porch Collaborative. The menu is Amen, A Different World, Family Matters, and the Jeffersons. It's directed by Jackie Davis. And basically, as you found out on Monday, the writer put together some of the holiday portions of some of these, I call them old school Black shows. And also on Friday, Callie Cosby is bringing into the space her Black Santa collection. We're going on Friday night. And so I will, of course, have some pictures and stuff, a lot going on Friday, but we're going to get there. And we're committed to getting there. But that is taking place the 12th through the 14th. And also, I want to remind you and make sure that you keep in mind that this tomorrow evening, if you're not going to the play, I would encourage you, if you live in the area of Kearney Hospital, it is imperative that you be aware of what's going on in reference to Kearney Hospital closing. There is a public meeting that the Boston Public Health Commission is having tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. I'm going to put that information on the screen right now. And I have posted the flyer, but I want to make sure that you stay reminded that this is taking place tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. and it is taking place at 1181 Adams Street at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow, December 12th. Are you impacted by the closure of Kearney Hospital in Dorchester? Tell us about the health needs in your community. How can we address those needs and promote equity following the hospital closure? Register and submit at boston.gov/Kearney. All right. So please be aware that that is taking place tomorrow night. Don't forget Holiday Feast is taking place. And also, I think that is it for my advertisements. Yes. All right. We are going to go ahead and let folks go. It is 10:49. UCB members, you get an hour today. And I think that's it. Let me just, there's a couple of comments left. Okay. Yes, Michelle D. Smith, I'm doing better. But yeah, you know what? I might come. We probably will come together tomorrow at 10 a.m. because I need to give some commentary. Boston is not a murder triangle. Black parts of Boston, though numbers are low, that are still dealing with issues of violence as recently as yesterday and a few days before that. Yeah. Michelle, thank you. Because a few people reached out after they saw a post, me calling out Reverend Kevin Peterson. Let me get off of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget tomorrow night, Holiday Feast starts. Also tomorrow at 5:30, the listening session with the Boston Public Health Commission, as well as the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers, and also the state, I believe Robbie, not Thomas, Robbie Goldstein, I believe will be there as well. From the Department of Public Health. All right, everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys. Thanks, Ma. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for being with us, and enjoy your Wednesday. All right, y'all. Peace.